Hi guys, my name is David, and amongst many things, my primary job at Mimecast is to manage our strategic service providers, including Pro Brand. So I really am chuffed to be here and speak to you today. The great news for you is that I'm not going to do 20 minutes of talking about products and features and functions. You know, I am the last speaker of the day, which means this is the graveyard shift. So hopefully I'm going to keep it quite interesting. And for me, it really is an interesting topic because, as you would have heard throughout the day, the landscape is changing. Threats are changing. The way that we need to protect ourselves as businesses is changing every day. Hopefully this timer works. Probably not going to. But 1 minute 22 is a really significant number because 1 minute 22 is the mean time between receiving a phishing email, clicking on that link, and compromising your business. And that's a really scary number, and that's a really scary figure because security and that belt and braces approach is just a cat and mouse race. You know? And it's almost been a case historically of we throw as much as we can at the wall, we see what sticks. But now things are very, very targeted. They're very compelling. The threats are changing. The motivations for the threats are ever changing. And the kinds of emails and attacks that we're seeing are changing all the time. So what should have happened if this animation was working properly is by the time I got to the end of this slide, I'll be finishing by saying your business has just been compromised by a phishing link. But there we go, this is technology. Email is the primary attack vector. That's a matter of fact. 91%, according to Verizon last year, of IT breaches do start off with an email attack in some way, shape, or form. And actually, Verizon have just released their new report this year, and that's gone up to 96%. That's a crazy number. Nearly 10 out of 10 of IT breaches will start off with email. And as I mentioned, the kinds of attacks we're seeing are changing. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a 55% increase in spear phishing attacks. That's not your Nigerian prince spamming attack. That's something that's very, very targeted, asking you guys as users to action an email, click on a link, open an attachment. There's a 1,300% increase in impersonation attacks. And again, this is changing more and more. It's not just, do I impersonate your CEO and ask you to do a wire transfer? I can now impersonate someone in your supply chain, pretend that I'm one of your suppliers, the people that you do business with, and compromise your organization that way. And there's a 400% increase in ransomware attacks. Usually attachment-based ransomware emails. We open the attachment before we've ever even read the body of the email. We've compromised our business, lost our data, and it's very, very difficult to get that back. So email really is quite a scary place, as important as it's become. So an interesting place to start is actually why people were doing these kinds of attacks, because sometimes it's quite clear and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's actually just for fun. TalkTalk were famously hacked a couple of years ago by a pair of teenagers that did it just to see if they could. They didn't have any malicious intent. They weren't trying to get money or any information. They just wanted to see if they could break TalkTalk. But sometimes it's a little bit more sinister. It can be state-sponsored. Sony Pictures, they were hacked, I think, 2014, so a few years ago now. And that was actually a response to a movie. Has anyone seen The Interview? It's, I personally think it's fantastic. So Seth Rogen and James Franco running around trying to kill Kim Jong-un. So it's a really, really funny movie, but not if you were North Korean. And it's widely believed that North Korea sponsored the attack on Sony Pictures as a response to that movie. It could be politically motivated. Now, when I actually originally built this presentation, it was just after the US election, but they've not stopped talking about it. We've all heard about Russian meddling in the US election. CNBC estimate that 39 US states were targeted during that election process to try and influence the way that the American voters actually did go to the polls. So it may be a politically motivated attack. It could be organized crime. In an increasingly digital age, a cyber attack could actually just be a really, really interesting and easy gateway into a more traditional physical crime. It might sound a bit Ocean's 11, and I quite obviously do look like George Clooney, but it's actually quite reasonable to take down a business's security system just so you can open the door and steal the money out of the bank. It's a really easy way of doing things in today's world. And it could actually be, not on the screen, it could actually be someone that you know. Someone in this room, Paul or James or Sue, someone that you sit across the desk from every day. When we talk about cybersecurity, we're constantly talking about threats from the outside, people trying to get into our organization and compromise our users and our data. But actually, an insider in a business is in a really, really unique position to compromise what's important to us. It might be that they know they're doing it and they're really nasty, but it may well actually be that they don't know at all. So we actually also have to think about the compromised or malicious insider. So what kinds of techniques are they using to actually breach our businesses? God, having loads of technical problems today. The dark web is perfect for hackers. The World Wide Web is a fantastic platform, but it's always been very open and very visible. But the dark web changes the game completely. We can now create websites that people can't trace. We can search things that people find very difficult to find. The dark web gives us a really unique way of doing horrible, nasty things in a cyber world in a way that's anonymous, it's untraceable, untrackable, which if you're a hacker is gold dust. We've got bulletproof hosting sites. And again, I'm having issues with my slides. We've got bulletproof hosting sites, so companies will actually provide you with the compute, the resource, the storage that you need to host a phishing site. They don't really care what you're using it for. They get the money, they give you the resources that you need to actually make a site. And then we've got cryptocurrency. If I'm a hacker and I'm trying to extort money by cybercrimes, what better to use than a cryptocurrency that's, again, very difficult to trace, very difficult to track. And every time a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin changes hands, the encryption keys get longer and longer, and it becomes harder and harder, actually, to decipher and anticipate what happened. You don't even need to know how to code anymore. There are services for ransomware. You know, we talk about platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and now we've got ransomware as a service. You don't have to build anything yourself. You just go to a company, they will give you ransomware, and not only will they give you the tools, they'll also give you monitoring tools around it. It's a fantastic service. You can track how much damage you've done. So services like Tox, and I think this is really interesting. This is actually a real screenshot, but $39 for a license to create ransomware and cause all sorts of havoc. It's really, really crazy how easy this has become. If you do know how to code, but actually your primary concern is you don't know how to get around the sandbox, then there are services for that too. People will tell you how to bypass this new advanced technology that's specifically designed not to be bypassed. And again, you can just pay for that as a service. And if you are piloting an interesting ransomware attack, you need some way of actually collecting the money. There are services that can do that for you. There are call centers who've got multiple languages that will advise people that you have hacked, the people that you've breached, how they actually log in and give you the money that they want so they can give you the data back. Again, this is a service that you can just go and pay for on the internet. So it's really interesting because the kinds of threats are changing, the kinds of techniques are getting more and more sophisticated, and in the digital world, it's really getting easier and easier to do these things. You don't even have to be technical anymore to hack. So I thought it would be useful, actually, to walk you through how easy attack could be, focusing specifically on the email marketplace. Because the biggest threat to all of us is this, social engineering. It's the fact that we are in an increasingly visible world. People know stuff about us, and as such, they know how to target us. And there's loads of literature on the internet. Here's a few books if anyone does want to become an expert. I suggest you write them down very quickly. There's loads of literature to teach you how to do social engineering and how effective that's become. But I'll walk through in just a couple of slides how you guys could go away and create an attack should you be bored of your jobs and want to try something new. Most websites and most companies will have a page like this. This is Mimecast's homepage. There's an About Us section, and I've got a list of our key executives. What better way than to try and defraud an organization or extort an end user, but to send an email that looks like it's coming from one of these very handsome and very important people in the business? We're literally handing our execs on a plate to hackers that want to compromise us. If I've got that information and I need to go a little bit further, I can just create a LinkedIn account. I can make a few connections, I can search for a few different people, and if I'm intelligent about the way that I do things, very quickly, I can build a picture of what an organization looks like. Who reports into who? Who's likely to be asking who for what? So again, if I'm trying to impersonate someone or target an end user, I can make it really, really quite compelling. Once I've done that, I know who the key stakeholders are, I know who to target, then it's just about a call to action. We need to get the users to do something. A user could be the biggest strength to an organization, but quite often it's the weakest link, particularly if we ask them to do something that they shouldn't, but they don't know they're not supposed to. So for example, if I'm targeting the HR side of the business, I found an HR director and someone in the HR team, I could create a CV that's loaded with ransomware or some sort of macros or code that are malicious. I send it out to that person in HR. They open it on their desktops, because we do that, again, sometimes before we even read the body of the email, and we've locked out all their data. Or perhaps I target someone in the warehouse team or in our supply chain. I send them an email that looks like this from Costco or DHL. I tell them to click this link, log in, and then track their parcel, that delivery of that fantastic hardware that's just been shipped. Or I can be really nasty. I pretend that I'm the CEO, and I'll go for someone that's brand new in the accounts team, that's really keen to impress their boss, and I ask them to do a wire transfer. It looks like it's coming from them. It's the right domain name. It sounds like it's the right language for the CEO and the way that you'd send me an email. And I'm really keen to impress him, so I'll do that wire transfer, and we've just lost 50,000. It's quite small, but an example just behind my massive head is a really good example of one that we received. And we're a cybersecurity vendor. We talk about this sort of thing all the time. But we actually went back and forth and had a conversation with a hacker. They changed an M in Mimecast to an R and an N. We didn't spot it until a few emails had gone back and forth. It's really, really easy to do. It doesn't matter what your level of education is, because social engineering is so compelling. Simple, right? It should be really simple. And because it's so simple, we need to be very, very careful about the way that we protect ourselves. It's not a case of simple problem, simple solution. The more simple the problem gets, the more difficult actually coming up with a compelling solution becomes. And the challenge that we found with lots of our customers is that they think their security looks like this. They think that they've got all these fantastic tools, all these multiple layers that they've built into their infrastructure over the years and years of combating viruses and spam and malware and all the things that we used to speak about. But in reality, in a modern world, it looks a little bit like this. I know there are some similarities, but that is not me. But as you can see, he's got the wrong tools for the job. I think he's riding a dog instead of a horse, or being in a Hummer or whatever it might be. So we think we've got the right tools because for years we've built up this infrastructure that's really, really complicated and did a really good thing or a number of things to solve old problems. But because the threats are changing so quickly, very soon this becomes outdated. So we need to do something differently. We need to think a little bit more clearly if we are going to stay protected in this evolving threat landscape. Real, God, this is flying through. Step one has to be the technology. I do work on Mimecast, I work for a software company. Technology has always got to be at the forefront of our minds. We do need to make sure that we've got best-of-breed security technologies that are responding as quickly as possible to these emerging threats. That's a no-brainer. But we've also got to think about our end users. That second layer is the human firewall, this row of meerkats, this row of meerkats that actually is going to be looking at those emails, reading those emails, deciding whether we need to respond. That multiple layered approach is really, really important. Right technology, right people. How do we win that arms race between attacker and victim, but also how do we plug that skills gap? So pen testing, end user education, phishing simulation, etc., etc. Hoping. So we'll wait for the PowerPoint to try and catch up with me. But even the right technology and the right people is only going to solve half of the problem. And this is where cybersecurity turns into cyber resilience. Now, this whole event is around cybersecurity, and that's massively important. But the way that the threats are changing causes more risks. And actually, if you look at email, we're at a center of a massive convergence of risk. The right technology and the right people will help with the first 2 points on this slide. They'll help us with that defense arms race, and they'll help us with the skills gap. But what about business disruption? It is a cat and mouse race, so how do we ensure that if we do have a breach or there is an event that we need to be aware of, we maintain system availability? How do we have that continuity plan? And also, how do we make sure that our data is not held to ransom? Security isn't just about causing damage and downtime, it's now about data and holding data and extorting us from it. So actually, if we're going to move from a world of cybersecurity into cyber resilience and properly protect our business, we've got to think about a lot more than just how do we protect nasty stuff coming inbound. I'm not going to read it off the slide, but this is actually a definition from Wikipedia about what cyber resilience is. And it's that convergence of email security and information security, as we've heard lots about today, but business continuity and data resiliency as well. How do we stay secure, stay available, and make sure that that data is ready for us all the time? And that approach is really significant because it helps us with the triple threat of protecting our users with a security platform, stopping them being infected, protecting our data from being held to ransom with things like ransomware and the various different ways of keeping people's data to hostage, and making sure that we maximize productivity even when something goes wrong. And the triple threat that these three areas face is human error. We do make mistakes. I do them all the time. Technological failure, and also malicious intent, whether it's from someone outside or indeed inside of our organization. And the only way that we can help with this triple threat, this double triple threat, I guess, is to have an approach that prevents before an incident with our security strategy, ensures availability and the ability to mitigate the risk during an incident, to maintain business continuity, and actually make sure that we've got the ability to improve, analyze, recover, and move on after an incident. Cybersecurity is only about the first piece. It's all about prevention. We need to start thinking about all three now as we move into this world of cyber resilience. So that means preparation, the right training, the right processes, the right technologies in place to prepare for something to go wrong because it probably will. Prevention, the traditional approach that we've always followed, making sure that we have got best-of-breed technology in to stop attacks coming through. But also detection. It can take 229 days to realize that a business has suffered a ransomware attack. 229 days. We need that to be much faster, so we have to invest in detection technologies. Spot something early and mitigate the risk before it snowballs into something that's huge. Maintain business continuity during that disruption. And we also have to think about our response. How do we report back on an incident? GDPR, a lot of the literature around that is about actually how do we report and respond. If we have lost data, how do we get it back? We can't pay a ransom. The US government actually talks about not paying ransom just the same way they say don't negotiate with terrorists, because it is on the same level. So how do we make sure that we can recover our data afterwards? So it's prepare, prevent, detect, respond, and it's a cycle. It's not just a point. We have to keep going round and round with these 4 points as the threats continue to change and evolve. So the key takeaway from me, guys, and sorry to kind of poo-poo the title of this seminar, is to actually stop thinking about cybersecurity. Stop thinking about just that one really, really important piece, but also think about business continuity. Think about data resilience. Think about actually turning your cybersecurity strategies into a cyber resilient strategy. And that's what we talk to our customers about every day. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Any questions, guys? No?
Cool. Oh, yes. This is the bit where I start sweating.
What do you see are the developments coming down the pipeline which are going to help make email more secure? Because I mean, I know, for example, it can be very tricky to send cryptographically encrypted email, for example, which is one way of securing a payload. And also, what would you say are the biggest worries you've got on the horizon, which you think this is going to make things a lot worse?
Yeah, sure. Really good question. So the trend over the last few years has been about how attacks are becoming more and more specific. So antivirus, anti-spam was very much just throw loads of stuff, see what happens. Then it became phishing, let's be a little bit more targeted, get someone to click something. Then spear phishing, let's target specific individuals for something very, very cool. And then we look at impersonations. There's actually nothing technically wrong with an impersonation attack, it's just a cleverly worded emails. And now we're seeing impersonations move outside of the business. So I won't impersonate your CEO, I'll impersonate one of your suppliers. That's how Target got caught. It was a ventilation contractor that did something wrong. So I think the biggest risk that I see at the moment is the fact that stuff is becoming more and more specific. And that's where the intelligence and reporting piece becomes really, really crucial, because I think all vendors, but particularly email security solutions in the past, have kind of avoided threat intelligence conversations. They kind of just say, we do all the filtering in the background. If something pops up, we'll plug the hole. Don't worry about it. But actually, that's got to change now. I think all solutions are going to have to integrate with reporting tools. You're going to have to give transparency to customers so we can do that reporting piece and go back around the cycle to prevent and repair and all the rest of it. So from an email attack, it's just about giving that open visibility. I don't know if that answers your question technically enough, but that's what I would say. Does that help?
Great.
Right.
Any more, guys? Gentleman over here.
Hello. I know a lot of people who actually want to stop using emails completely because it's not the most effective way of communication in most cases. Do you see any trends in the industry which suggest that the usage of email is decreasing, which should obviously help to manage this kind of risks?
Yeah. I think the easiest way to stop email threats would be to stop using email, and I think people would probably love to do that. And if you think about email, it was never actually designed to be used in the way that it is. It was supposed to be like an SMS platform, a very simple way of sending things so we didn't have to fax them. But the fact of the matter is it has snowballed into our primary communications form. People might want to get rid of it, but they find it very difficult to. So when I first started at Mimecast 3 years ago, the stat that we used to use was 112 billion emails were sent every single day. In 2018, Gartner estimates that that's actually 225. So that's doubled over 3 years. So I think even if we want to, it's going to continue to snowball. But it's not just about the way that we communicate that's the problem, because it would be simple to say, stop sending emails, make phone calls. It actually integrates with other parts of our business now in a way that's going to be really hard to undo. So think about CRM platforms that link into email, your billing mechanisms, your ERP systems, your supply chain, all the rest of it. So yes, it would be the easy thing to do, we rip it up and stop using it, and I think the market would probably love to do that, but they recognize that they probably can't, because email usage is going up and up and up and up, and the threats are going up and up and up and up.
Any more, guys? Cool. All right. Thank
Cool.
you very much, David.
Love it.
Thank you.